The town, it climbs the mountain and looks out o'er the sea. And sleep in time, or waking time, it's there I'd like to be. To walk again.
There comes a time after steel and iron and locomotive and steam engine, after prison and famine and dispossession and separation, when we must collect our dead. I'm talking to you, Irish America, safe in your suburban homes and cul-de-sacs, taking the kids to soccer practice. There comes a time along railroad tracks, canals, mines, factories, and in pauper graves when we must name our dead. And those left on the battlefield. There comes a time after the great hunger recedes in our DNA, when substance addiction quiets, when we must collect our dead, and we can read their names, and only then will we have finally arrived in those coffin ships in North America. So help us, friends, in sunken holes. Help us, William Barry, 19. Help us, Infant Breen, 2 days. Help us, Grace Burns, 40. Help us, Patrick Carr, 31. Help us, James Farrell, 45. Help us, Annie Flannery, 7 months. Help us, Infant Harrington, stillborn. Today is that day.
Today we gather to remember the approximately 1,400 Irish immigrants and family members who lived, loved, worked, and perished on this land. Land which we must note was the traditional homeland of the Ute people. We gather here at this graveyard to lift up those Irish who lay buried in these unmarked graves in this pauper section of the cemetery. And we honor them for the lives they led as miners, some as railroad workers, domestic servants, and laundresses, as they worked hard in and for a land that was not always hospitable to them because of their accents, their culture, their poverty, and of course their Catholic faith. We know that in 1880, Irish miners marched down the main street demanding higher pay and better conditions, only to be defeated, like other striking workers during the Gilded Age in American history, for merely seeking dignified treatment and a fair wage. We know the remarkable stories of individuals like Michael Mooney, thanks to Dr. Walsh, who embodied resilience and political savvy and became a strong leader. Part of honoring the Leadville Irish here today is acknowledging that the heart of their story is familiar still. It is reflected in the experiences of other and more recent immigrants who come to America seeking safety, stability, food to feed their families, education for their children, opportunity for themselves and their descendants.
Legend has it, until this day in present Ireland, you can still see the ridges that mark the land where the potatoes were planted. Hands pressed into concrete to remind us that something happened here. Fingerprints on this hollowed ground. I have long imagined that most ruins must tell stories of pleasant hordes, villages, Clarkins, Ballia, where stories earned their mouths. It's easy to forget that there were poems here, ballads, lyrics, laughter so boisterous it shook the whole hovel, in so much harmony to humble the hunger in the morning, till they tilled the stones and muck into a home. Long before the crows were reduced to skeletons, it's easy to forget that people were living in famine before the blight. James, Patrick's, Hughes, Brian's, Mary's, smiling luxuriance turned to shriveled and black waste.
They were the children of the famine. They understood poverty and desperate times, and they came here to look for this better world, for the American dream. And unfortunately, some of these people, that wasn't for them. But we won't forget them, and as part members of the Irish and Irish American community here, our goal is to name the unnamed here, and this memorial will be a success. We will continue forward with this, that we will honor their memory and never forget.
Grandpa and my great-grandpa were Irish coal miners. We didn't mind the hard rock, but we mined the coal. And I myself, I'm a mining engineer. And I just want to honor those that gave their lives for the Irish here in Leadville and everywhere. And I thank everybody for everything they're doing to honor these people and to keep their memories alive and to respect the Irish and the Irish contribution to this part of the world.
The power of giving their names and their locations for their ancestors during the Irish diaspora is something that can change lives, and I think that it already has. It certainly changed mine. And so I've been just so pleased to be a part of this work and honored to be with so many people who come together and lend their talents, whether it be chainsawing or bagpiping or being able to find a ground-penetrating radar, in bodies that it really is a community effort born out of love and a common interest of honoring forgotten ancestors and immigrants who came here with nothing and may have died with nothing.
I am very grateful because as a coal miner, I stand on their shoulders because of the sacrifices they made, not only in health and safety, which I was able to work the mine safely because of the sacrifices that they did, but also from the economic justice that they did, the fights, the struggles, and everything that they did. And Jim, you read off a couple of the children here. There was the children of Ludlow, but they may never have spoken a word, but they changed history. They changed history for the better. And I would like to tell you today that we no longer have struggles with immigration, that our immigrants are treated justly, but through the years, people have brought immigrants into this country and told us, don't like them. And when we say why, they say because they're different. And the abuse that we give them. And today, if anything, I hope it was a certain time that the abuse of immigrants ends.
So I want to say that I'm very honored to be here this morning to say and be with you and align with you about these young people that lie here. Our people also lie out here. My title, I work in the Cultural Preservation Department with the Southern Ute Indian Tribe. I am the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act Coordinator. I am also, tomorrow will be the Deputy Tribal Historic Preservation Officer for the Southern Ute Indian Tribe. I come here today because, like you, we have unmarked graves too. We have our people out on the landscape. But I come here today as you honor and you see and you find these graves and they come up, and as these people and as these children that didn't make it, that got here but were buried here, that have gone on to the spirit world now, you know, with their relatives that maybe now they can hear them and they can recognize them and they can say, here I am, and they say, here you are, come home now. We welcome you home now. Their bodies are right here. All of their way to who they were and how they lived live in you. You know, you're the descendants of some strong people, just like me. You know, we're descendants here together of some strong people that faced adversity and annihilation and termination and reorganization. And now we're coming here together because it's time for all of us to speak up and to remember them.
I've learned so much about Irish people that came here back in the 1800s, early 1900s that I was not aware of before, and it has piqued my interest in the whole subject matter, and I'm an avid learner, and I will learn lots more, and that's why I'm here. Learn lots more about my ancestors and ancestors of lots of the people that are here gathered for this memorial.
This is a very special occasion because it preserves Irish culture, and this space is very special. It fits in very well with understanding and preserving history from all ethnic backgrounds, especially Irish history. When my grandmother purchased this house, as a poor Mexican woman with no income and 13 family members in 1933, she called it Casa Maya. But immediately this became a home of many Irish American families that lived here. And what was remarkable, but these Irish families were from the very poor, including those homeless boys who rode the railroads that came here to look for work and help in the home. But also the working class, the middle class, the artistic class, and the well-to-do Irish came here at this space that you're sitting in right now. That was very remarkable for its time, because in addition to integrating and socializing with each other, they cooperated and helped the Mexican Americans socially, economically, and spiritually. What was also remarkable that these were first generation Irish Americans and second generation, and they were very determined to preserve their Irish culture and heritage, just like the Mexican Americans. But the remarkable space that you're right here where you're gathered on was the shared and solidarity with the Irish Americans and Mexican Americans.
Helping people rediscover their stories and learn what their genuine connection is to Irish culture as it's practiced in Ireland, or what they want to retain of that heritage, what they want to share with others, what practices they want to adopt about how to be inclusive, how to be generous, how to invite people to your table, how to share meals, how to be the kind of neighbors that we were just speaking about. It seems to me critically important work to be doing right now, and to be sharing that part of our heritage with one another, and having a broader capacity to interact with everybody that we share this country with, despite the losses that we've had along the way. And I feel lucky that Jim's been telling me the story of his work and the story of what people are doing in Irish studies together to resurrect these stories that are hard to resurrect when the trauma was so difficult that some of the stories weren't handed down necessarily intact, or fully along the way. And I think that in Irish studies, one has the chance to not know Ireland as a mythical place or a place about green beer, but to actually go there and understand that it's a very contemporary society, a very diverse society, a society that is really concerned with the global nature of living on a planet together, and really wants to help the United States and the Irish American community here have a global sense of interconnectedness. So in that spirit, I'm really delighted to be here learning more about the work that everybody's doing.
September 21st, 1896. 125 years ago, Tuesday. The Irish had been on strike for 3 months with their fellow brothers and sisters in the mines, the Western Federation of Miners. It's a brutal strike. The companies began to recruit scabs from Missouri, American-born miners, and import them into Leadville. Soldiers on horseback marched the scabs up 5th Street into Stray Horse Gulch in the Robert Emmett mine, and began reopening mines in the middle of the Irish community. A faction of the Irish community could not take this anymore. So in secret, they armed themselves. They built a homemade cannon that shot chains. And they attacked the Coronado mine and the Robert Emmett. The Union had been infiltrated, and the guards were ready. And it was a bloodbath. This is the Romero troops imagining of the aftermath at 3 o'clock in the morning. September 21st, 1896.
Mobiles land rasende partijpanna Basuachana te venakullo Before singing to you the tacht on Lordo See they gori nerechion young vold Bachau Ronald Ride on Ferris on Yersha on Lav Gesanlager is van Hirium Achfa Moharnas Mobila Mangal Garlauna Prate Ganshok Nashin. Kerde Chania Savralin van Ara Shinfer Tabak no Pipi no Konra Holora Hodri Lahunish Lekaurish Lian Sarnoi boy even boy oh I
This strike's over. We're finished with Leadville.
You fucking cowards! Yeah, that's right. They'll be bringing those sons of bitch scabs right up this street, in front of my house, in front of your house, in front of your house, and your house! Where are we going to go? It's the same everywhere we go! I'm not going anywhere! I'm gonna stand in the street! I don't care if they kill me! Who's with me? I am.
That morning, the women blocked Fifth Street. The soldiers came with the scabs. The women refused to move. They used their bayonets and injured 2 women. The strike went on for 7 more months until the food ran out. Michael Mooney said, "We may not have the whole American flag, but by God, we have a corner of it." But this struggle, friends, isn't over.
It is a fantastic organization, and we are just so happy to hear about the memorial groundbreaking and opening in Leadville. The story of the Irish miners in Colorado is in many ways a tragic and sad story. We know how young they died, how young so many of them died, men and women, their families. The story of the labor wars is another tragedy of Colorado history. I believe they started 108 years ago this very night. Commemorating these miners is a way of just remembering the people who came before us, the people who worked so hard in the earth to take out its resources and build the America we know today. And not to mention the women who also worked in very tough circumstances at one of the highest altitude areas of America. We're just so grateful to the Irish Network and everyone in the community who is working to commemorate these people who came before us.
The enthusiasm that people have shown for what we're trying to accomplish in Leadville has really been energizing. There's just so many people working hard to make this happen. So I'm thrilled to be even a small part of it.
To remember the stories of our ancestors that came here. To remember that life was very painful at times, but yet we're all still here as their descendants. It's pretty inspiring.
This memorial it's really important to the Irish community here, and my hope is that it's also important to non-Irish communities, that by honoring people buried in paupers' graves, essentially immigrant workers, 19th century immigrant workers, that we're also honoring migrants everywhere. And we're also honoring refugees everywhere and migrants of all eras. So this to me is it's a human rights space as much as it's an Irish space. And that's how I'll always see it. It's a place where the voices of the poor are unleashed 140 years after they were buried.
Like this. It's one of the Colorado songs. Way out west of the foot of the Rocky Mountains, there lies a place like a jewel in the sun, where fish are jumping high as an aspen tree. I know no other place I'd rather be. Oh, which is the state we love the best? Colorado. Which is the finest in the west? Colorado, where snow gleams and glistens and God stops to listen. C-O-L-O-R-A-D-O is my home, where the cowboy sings his song. This is the land where we belong. This is the place for you and me. Amen. So that's one of the songs.